It seems a new study is published every week that puts the Earth closer and closer to a point of no return, stressing that we as a species must make drastic and unprecedented changes to the methods with which we produce our energy. As we continue to explore other methods like solar, hydroelectric, or geothermal, one method seems increasingly viable once more. Sooner or later, nuclear energy could likely return to its lost status as the method of powering the future. But before we get there are some significant hurdles to overcome. Many see nuclear energy and think of disasters. Fukushima Daiichi, 3 Mile Island, Tokaimura, and Chernobyl. But as horrific as each of these incidents were, most of them were the result of fatal human error, and while the outcomes of these incidents were deadly, the death tolls were considerably lower than one might have anticipated. In the initial death toll from the Fukushima Daiichi disaster, 2,202 died due to complications with the ensuing evacuation process, with only 1 dead due to radiation exposure. In fact, not only is nuclear power less harmful to workers overall, it is far less environmentally harmful, more profitable, and longer lasting than fossil fuels. As the world comes closer and closer to pulling the plug on fossil fuel production, a resurgence in nuclear power is not only the smarter move, but safer and more profitable as well. However, handled incorrectly, nuclear materials can be especially harmful. Take the Tokaimura nuclear power plant incident in Japan in 1999, in which Hisashi Oichi, after being exposed to an incredible amount of radiation, was kept alive for 83 days as his body literally disintegrated in front of his very eyes, all due to a lack of proper oversight at the plant. Because of incidents like this, the general public deeply mistrusts nuclear power and its potential dangers. Even accidentally, nuclear power can be fatally dangerous, but in the hands of those with the intent to do harm, it could be disastrous. Nuclear terrorism, while fortunately having yet to be realized, is a possibility on the minds of many world governments. With the hindsight of the damage unregulated fossil fuel consumption has caused, and the foresight of potential nuclear terrorism, going forward, a more unified, transparent approach to the handling of these materials will be required. To really succeed, however, this cannot be left to the discretion of individual governments. This will need to be a multinational effort with stringent oversight and severe consequences for negligence and mishandling. This is not just to prevent nuclear terrorism in the worst case, but to bolster public relations and trust and to prevent accidents in the best case. The public should trust nuclear power. Once again, on the whole, it is much safer. A dedicated multinational council overseeing nuclear energy production all over the world will both increase the integrity and transparency of the process and lessen the burden of countries less capable of properly handling and disposing of materials. Instead of waiting until there is too much nuclear waste to properly keep track of and effectively dispose of, world governments should begin planning now how to properly catalog, transport, and safeguard it before we see a tangible return to nuclear power. With countries working together to determine the protocols for handling and disposal of nuclear waste, final resting sites will be more easily determined. No longer will these harmful nuclear materials lie dormant. With a dedicated deciding process for a multinational repository for nuclear waste, countries would no longer be able to haphazardly toss the spent materials aside, lying dormant for some scavenger to discover. By focusing and unifying efforts for policing the use of nuclear materials, governments would democratically vote from a series of candidates where permanent repositories should be located. Uninhabitable land that could not have previously been developed into repositories would now have the backing of a multitude of nations who would not have previously been able or willing to build said repositories on their own land. With a global electoral process, the decided locations of repositories would be built more safely, the record of the location and specifications of said facilities would be better preserved by multiple governments, and the country or countries mainly shouldering the burden would be properly compensated. With borders no longer an issue, waste would be deposited in the safest and most secure possible locations. Perhaps through this cooperation, we could see the first successful ocean floor disposal in history, in which spent materials are buried beneath tectonic plates in the ocean floor and naturally sealed over thousands of years. Scientists all over the world have looked into methods of deterring future civilizations from investigating harmful dump sites, and there is nowhere less likely to be disturbed on the planet than the ocean floor. By the time a potential successor civilization would be able to uncover the materials, they would long since have decayed. Ocean floor disposal has never been implemented successfully, most likely due to the massive amount of resources that would be required to do so. With the combined resources, efforts, and cooperation of world governments, this possible method could become a reality, ensuring not just our safety, but the safety of future civilizations. The litany of problems caused by the exponentially harmful use of fossil fuels has forced cooperation between nations on an unprecedented scale. It is shown that when push comes to shove, and even past that, sooner or later we must put our differences aside for the good of all. If we could use that cooperative spirit not only to mitigate the problems plaguing us now, but to make a better world for the present and the future, we could only gain from it.